everybody. Welcome back to the Armchair Crew Chief. My name is Jordan, and this is the week of October 24th. We only have two more races for Xfinity and Cup Series for the championship and one more for Camping World. So a lot of racing happened today, or this past weekend. Everybody raced, trucks, Xfinity, and Cup Series, and we will go ahead and just jump right into it. Let's go ahead and start with the trucks. It was kind of an uneventful race for what trucks are normally at. There's usually a lot of crashing in trucks because you have a lot of racers that are inexperienced. It ended up being a long race, very few cautions, as I said, and we'll just kind of jump to it. We had Ryan Preece start up on the pole and Ben Rhodes second with Matty D third. Going through there, we had Rhodes looked strong throughout the whole race. He was running up there in the top five, finishing top five in stage 1 and 2. He actually took stage 1, so he got some stage points to help him out. Unfortunately, he ended up finishing 6th. Your winner was Ty Majeski. He has been on a tear recently. I think this is 2 out of 3 or 4 races that he's won. So he looks like to be a good, strong contender in this playoff run that they're going to have. They will not race next week at Martinsville, but they will be racing at Phoenix for the championship. So we have that to look forward to. As I said, not a lot of crazy things happening in the truck race like normally. Normally it's a wreck fest, and it didn't seem like that. So going back into the playoffs standings, so we pretty much have Ty Majeski locked in with a win. Zane Smith, Ben Rhodes, and Chandler Smith are going to be running for the championship. Ben Rhodes eked it out just a little bit, so he's in it. And that's all that matters. John Hunter, Stuart Friesen, and Grant Enfinger, both they weren't and not in the race anymore. In the race for championship, Friesen expressed some frustrations at the end of the race. He was pretty frustrated with Thor Sports, and he was kind of expressing how Thor Sports let their driver Rhodes go through to make it a little bit easier. So, we'll see what happens. Chandler Smith running in the KBM car and KBM truck. We'll see what happens. And this is more than likely the last year for KBM as a Toyota manufacturer. So, looking at the top 4, you have one Ford as Zane Smith coming from front row is going to be running in against the rest of the Toyotas. So we'll pick that right back up here in a couple weeks in Phoenix and see what happens. That should be a big race. These guys should fight out tooth and nail, and we'll see who comes out victorious. So going forward through, we'll go ahead and get you on the information for the Xfinity cars. Xfinity cars, watching those race, it was a good race again. A lot of battling. They had some tire issues. I think it was Allgaier had issues with. He actually corded a tire, and you can see him coming down pit road, just the cords on the tire just flailing and swinging and everything like that. They kind of set the precedent for the Cup cars to run the top of the track. They were running inches from the wall. So you actually had, starting in the lineup was Trevor Bayne, Noah Gragson, Ty Gibbs, Daniel Hemrick, and Brandon Jones were your top 5. And you'll see that they pretty much fought it throughout the whole way. Stage 1, Noah won it. Landon came back up. Trevor, he finished 4th. He was fighting voltage issues the whole race, pretty much. They kept saying that when he tried putting on his secondary and primary fans and such, that he was dropping volts like crazy. So probably the alternator wasn't running on that vehicle too well. And then you had Dinger finish off the top 5 in the stage 1. Stage 2, AAJ came back to second. Noah took the lead once again. Trevor Bayne fourth, so he still stayed up there, even with all the alternator power battery issues, whatever you would want to call it. So going back in, Noah Gragson swept the race. It it was a pretty good race between him and Ty. They were fighting back and forth. AJ had his fight in there a little bit too. I think those were pretty much the three guys that just kind of ran away with it and fought and did well. So, moving forward, they will be at Martinsville next week, and you have a Noah locked in now, as well as Josh Berry. So 2 Junior Motorsports cars are locked into the championship race at Phoenix. Your other cars that are in there right now currently are Ty Gibbs and AJ Allmendinger, and Ty Gibbs is 31 points to the good. So I believe that's 31 points to the good. 30 points to the good. So it's going to take a lot for him to be out. I think he's going to be a lock. AJ is only 5 points to the good. He's battling with Allgaier, Austin Hill, Mayer, and Jones. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens here, and what can happen if Allgaier can make it up there. Allmendinger can stay in there. I will say Allmendinger has a strong showing at Martinsville, so it's going to be fun to see what happens there. I'd like to see him take it. I think he can. I won't put it past him. But Ty Gibbs can pop up. He's had a really, really strong season. So, and with him moving, no word yet, but all signs are pointing to him popping into the 18 Cup car next year. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes out and wins it and just moves on up. So you have Noah. So you have 3 of the top 4 are actually going to be moving up into Cup full-time next year. You have Ty Gibbs, unofficially. Noah's already been tabbed for a full-time car. And you have AJ Allmendinger tapped for the 16 Cup car. So he's keeping numbers, saying just moving up to where the big boys were. And he was there before, and he threw his weight around and did pretty good. It just wasn't as strong as it needed to be. So hopefully with this new car and his experience that he's been learning, he can go up there and contend, kind of like how Trackhouse has been doing. So we're going on from there. Not that much to talk about with the Xfinity cars. They had a lot of wrecking. Not so much wrecking, but losing tires and blowing tires and everything hitting the wall because of blown tires. As I said, 7-car corded a tire, which was pretty crazy, and a couple other guys blew tires. And those were the cautions with those races. But yeah, that ended up being a pretty good race. Can't say too much else from there. Now moving over into Cup cars, we had William Byron taking the pole at Homestead. Then Christopher Bell, Chase Elliott, John Hunter, and my goodness, I like to see that one up there. John Hunter in the 45 replacing Bubba Wallace. I think he's got a lot of promise in this sport going forward. He's a pretty good driver. Larson rounded out the top 5. 2311 did a pretty good showing on qualifying. The Ty Gibbs in the 23 car actually finished qualified 6th. So you had your good mix of Toyotas and Chevrolets going all the way down to the 7th with Tyler Reddick, and then there's where your first few Fords popped into it with Buescher and Keselowski. So, and then Dinger was 10th and Kyle Busch 11th. So that was pretty much the starting lineup. It started off pretty good. As I was saying with the Xfinity cars, they ran the top line, and that was the fastest line pretty much around this track. William Byron led for a little bit, but ultimately Kyle Larson ran away with it. And the first stage, Larson had almost a 10-second, I think it was like 8.99 second lead going through the stage. He was whooping the pants off these guys. So that was frustrating if you're not a Larson fan. But, you had some strong showings. Truex started back in 12th place, and he finished third in that stage. William Byron finished second, so he was hanging up in there. Reddick had another fast car going through there as well. He was strong showing the beginning of the race. Unfortunately, John Hunter was doing pretty well too, but unfortunately with him, he ended up spinning out and ruining his chances going forward. So, sad to say, but he did. He finished 28th, starting pretty high up there. Ty Gibbs 24th. So, maybe that's a little bit of the inexperience showing with those guys. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Stage 2. Larson, once again, he was running. He wasn't that far out at the end of Stage 2. It was about 5 seconds that he had a Stage 2 lead whenever it came to the end. Truex, he went past Byron, got second. So as I said, he had a strong car, really strong car. He led a few laps there throughout the race. Blaney, another person that had a really strong car going forward. So it's it showed to be they could pass at Homestead. I think I heard some of the guys on the TV broadcast, this is a track that the drivers like. I liked it whenever it was the championship race because we were only there once, so you couldn't get any dirt on the track. You had to go in there fresh mind like everybody else. But ultimately, if we go back into it, at the end of the race, Kyle Larson did come out victorious. He did have to fight and battle, though. It was not as easy as it was to get those stage wins. He held off Chastain to about, I think, a second lead to win it. And then A.J. Allmendinger came up and showed up. He came in third, and Austin Dillon came in fourth. Truex, he had a really good comeback. He came back and finished sixth, fighting with Denny Hamlin for that sixth spot. Now, you might think, why are you saying that he had a good showing and coming back? Finishing sixth, he was running up there in top 3, top 2 at the end of the stages. Well, at about 25 laps to go, Tyler Reddick had a really hard hit. Hopefully he's okay. One of those hits that everybody's been having concussion issues with. But anyway, he spun out through the caution. Everybody's coming in. Whether Truex missed his pit, whether he wanted to do it, they say they wanted to do that on purpose, the way he was coming into his pit or whatnot. He ended up slowing down in the lane, and Larson bumped him and spun him around, and he actually was facing the wrong way on the pit road while they were servicing his vehicle. Coach Good Joe Gibbs looked frustrated. Larson and them, they said, hey, we didn't do anything wrong. Cliff Daniels was trying to calm down his driver because he's visibly frustrated, saying, oh, he locked up the wheels. I didn't see any of that. I was watching the replays even before doing this podcast just to make sure. I didn't see anything. So Coach showed frustration. I didn't hear the radio broadcast from Truex to see, but everything we were hearing from their crew and their camp is that's what they wanted to do. Steve Letarte and Dale Jr. were talking on the TV broadcast that it looked like he was going to miss his pit box, and they were kind of attributing it to the sun coming down. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But he had started to tail in, and I would say probably if he had 10 more laps, if we were talking about 30 or 40 left to go in this race, I think he would have been up there hanging with Chastain and Kyle Larson. But yeah, everybody raced themselves really well. There wasn't any crazy accidents. Very, very few cautions. I think John Hunter was a caution, and the Tyler Reddick spin was the 2 cautions outside of stages that I can remember off the top of my head. I could be wrong. But those are the ones that I could remember watching it. So did we figure something out with this car we can start passing? Because for a while there, it was only you could pass on restarts, and you could only pass, if you were up in the top 1 or 2 when you had that clean air. The dirty air is what was messing up these cars on these shorter tracks, and hey, we'll see what happens. We're going to Martinsville next week. We'll see what happens. I know Truex is pretty strong showing there. I know he's not a championship contender, but neither is Kyle Larson. Now, the big thing with Kyle Larson is he's actually going to be running for the owners championship, and he made it in there, and he's putting a big hurting on that from what I hear, and he has a chance of taking that. I say he's putting a big hurting, and I just checked those stats right now, and he is running fifth. So surprisingly, you have Penske running first with Logano, then you have the Trackhouse Racing crew up there with Chastain, and then the Hendrick cars, three of the Hendrick cars hanging out there. And so that is the owner standings. But the standings everybody wants to know is driver standings. So we only have one driver locked in so far, and that is Joey Logano. You have Ross Chastain, Chase Elliott, and William Byron right now, and they are not safe. They are not safe. We're talking Chastain is 19 points to the cut line. So he needs to get up on his horse and boogie, and so is everybody else. Denny Hamlin, he's out there, and he's 5 points below Willie B. William Byron is 5 points above, so they could be fighting back and forth that whole race next weekend to see who actually can get that fourth and final spot. Chase Elliott, he's 11 points. And again, guys, this is Martinsville. We'll see what happens. It's a short track, smaller track, and it's a tough track. It's a very, very tough track. So I was talking to some people, and they're like, yeah, it could drive kind of like a road course. Not the lefts, not the rights and all that, but just how you have to turn it and handle the car and things like that. We'll see. We'll see what's going forward. So you have Blaney sitting in sixth for the driver for the playoffs. He has 18 points, so he's still good. I would say it's going to take a miracle for either Bell or Briscoe to get in. Bell's about 33 points down, but I could see a swing between the 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 drivers. That who knows? You could have a shuffle up, and you have Blaney pop up in there. You could have Denny pop up in there as well. It kind of sucks for Christopher Bell that he's pretty much out. And the reason I say that is because of what happened last week with Bubba Wallace and his seeing red, we'll call it, and doing a move that he even says he shouldn't have done. And Christopher Bell was the casualty, and it's hurting him. He had a good running. So he's either got to win or get out, and win to get in, or I think he's going to be out unless one of these guys wrecks early. But my prediction going out of Martinsville is probably going to be Chastain, Elliott, and I'm going to say probably Denny. That's what I've been saying for the past couple of weeks. I kind of want to see that Chastain-Denny rematch because, just driving my race is what Denny said at Pocono when he ran him up in the Long Pond stretch there between 1 and 2. And, yeah, no, that there's some bad blood still there. So let's see if they can do that respectfully or not. So, that's pretty much. It's a short and sweet Cup Series and Xfinity Camping World recap. Going into the sports world, we have 2 more teams left in there for the World Series. We have the Houston Astros, who are the number 1 seed out of the American League, sweeping the Yankees yesterday, 4-0 in a series, and they are 7-0 going into the World Series. Have not lost yet. They swept Seattle before, and they swept New York just recently. That was a good, hard-fought battle. It ended up being, I don't even remember the score off the top of my head. I think it was like 5-4. And then coming out of the National League, you have the 6th seed Philadelphia Phillies. They are 6-1. So we have 2 teams on a tear right now. It's going to be a good matchup. You got one that's got the bats slowly waking up in the Astros, and their pitching, which is just locked down spectacular this whole season, going against the Cinderella story, I'm going to call them, because they kind of adapted that themselves with the fact that they're not they were left out. They were an afterthought by MLB whenever they got that 6th seed. They fought and got it, but they're on a tear now. Schwarber, Harper, Hoskins, all those guys are just crushing it. So it's going to end up being a good series. I I don't have any predictions on when it's going to go, but, I think everybody's in for a good watch. And that'll start Friday in Houston. So I have a feeling it's probably going to be Wheeler for the Philadelphia and Verlander for Houston. So from then on, we'll see what happens. Once again, I want to thank you guys for listening to this podcast. Hopefully I'm meeting you guys' needs, and it is entertaining and informative for everybody. I would like to hopefully expand this podcast out to have more people on it and go from there and get more input and comments. Anyway, thanks a lot. I hope you guys share, leave any comments if you're using Apple Podcasts, and I hope to see you guys next time. Take care and have a good week.